Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Monday, October 30th, 2023. So we are at the end of the month of October, basically. What do we have to look forward to in the month of November? Well, if history is any guide, we're going to have an investor presentation. Stronghold Digital Mining will more than likely have their Q3 2023 investor presentation. There are three basic things that I'm really interested in hearing more about. First and foremost, there was an incident, right, that took place at Scrubgrass in September of this year. So September would have been right the very end of Q3 2023. This was an unplanned outage, which then got resolved, and then a bunch of other maintenance work was pulled forward very strategically, I think very wisely, so as to get the plant in tip-top condition for the forthcoming winter. So I'm interested in hearing what kind of price tag that might have incurred. If I'm not mistaken, in past investor presentations, the rough estimate for this year, if I'm not mistaken, was around 2 to 4 million for plant downtime, maintenance, things of that nature. Don't quote me on this. So to the extent that Scrubgrass needed a little bit more work than usual, maybe that number would have been closer to 5 million, maybe 6 million. We're going to find out. But nevertheless, I'm incredibly proud of the fact that this, waste coal reclamation facility, which had essentially just been a peaking facility, right? Just kind of being turned on very sporadically, pretty much, a couple steps away from being completely offline, permanently, is now essentially a baseload facility. No easy task to go from a peaking facility to a baseload facility. I mean, there's a lot of time, effort, and energy and investment that goes into making that happen. And, I think it's a little bit unfair, right, to the power plant team over at Scrubgrass, because I think we only ever talk about things when there is an outage, right? It's easy to forget all of those times where things are just running the way they should be running and everything's awesome, right? So, got to be fair here. Scrubgrass, you're doing a great job, really. So, okay, that's the first thing I'm looking forward to hearing more about during our Q3 2023 investor presentation. The second thing that I'm curious to hear more about, which I'm sure you're curious to hear more about as well, is what will become of the 25 megawatts of end-to-end data center equipment that we've got, right? Stronghold Digital Mining owns this equipment. Now it's just a matter of, hey, where do we put it? Then once we get that data center energized, then the next step is to fill it with Bitcoin mining machines. I don't think we can get through this forthcoming investor presentation without some communication with regard to that. I mean, I'm sure a question will come up, right? During the Q&A, an analyst is sure to say, hey, guys, just curious what's going on with regard to the proposed third site. So here's what I think is probably going to happen. If we hear something before the investor presentation itself, right, a news release, right, that says, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, then we're going to find out that way. And we'll, get more additional details during the investor presentation. If we don't hear anything, including when the news release comes out saying, hey, the investor presentation is on such and such a day and time, then I still think we're going to hear something, but it might be potentially more along the lines of, we're continuing to evaluate this. It's better, as they say, I believe in carpentry, to, measure twice and cut once, right? The last thing we want to do is start installing this data center equipment only to then discover, this site isn't quite right. We're going to have to uproot this data center equipment, put it back in storage, and go back to the drawing board. Nobody wants to do that, right? So, hey, I'm patient. I'm sure you're patient as well. I'd rather we get this right. And I really mean that. But regardless, we're going to find out a bit more about what's going on with regard to that data center equipment. The third thing that I think is really important that we're probably going to hear more about is the work that Frontier Mining is doing to help optimize the basket of assets that Stronghold Digital Mining already has deployed. Remember, we've got a data center at Scrubgrass, we've got a data center at Panther Creek. These data centers have tens of thousands of Bitcoin mining machines. And if it's my understanding, there's additional machines that we've got that simply just need to be installed. I haven't wanted to dive too deeply into some of the wording in our October 13th news release, simply because I've wanted to focus on a couple other projects that I've got going on. And I also think to myself, well, hey, we're going to talk about this in the investor presentation. So, let's sort of like leave it be for now. But I am very curious, as I'm sure you are, to find out where we're at insofar as our efforts to really, I guess, in a more fully deployed way, be at 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining, not just capacity, but of actual hash rate. Like, we've actually got 4 exahash deployed and hashing 24/7. And quite possibly, maybe we're using new techniques and technology thanks to frontier mining, whereby potentially we're overclocking portions of the Bitcoin mining fleet when it makes sense to do so. Or alternatively, maybe we're dropping the amount of electricity being sent to the data center, and we're then also underclocking some of these machines to basically get a much higher return on investment. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's my understanding that's something that's a reality. Okay, so we're going to just find out more. I think the name of the game, my impression is to kind of just get us up to a point where, hey, we're at least in line with industry standards. That's the first step. The second step would then be to maybe embark on some really ambitious optimization projects insofar as like underclocking, overclocking, and doing things like that. Because remember, for Stronghold Digital Mining, it is, as has been revealed in prior investor presentations, it's a little bit trickier because we are so interconnected to the PJM grid, right? We're not just, hey, plugged in saying, hey, we're Bitcoin mining all the time. Remember, these data centers, there are times where they will be powered down, and all of that electricity that would otherwise go to the data centers will be diverted instead to the PJM grid to not only help stabilize the grid, but to also generate some useful and healthy revenue for Stronghold Digital Mining. Okay, so that's what I've got in mind as we come to the end of the month of October. The price of Bitcoin has been holding steady at about, $34,400. Hash prices have been incredibly useful. I've seen a lot of 7 cents and higher, sometimes a little bit below 7 cents, but generally speaking, I'm seeing some really good numbers as it relates to hash price. And I've started to see different media articles. For example, on CNN.com, I spotted an article that mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the emergence of a BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF will help add more credibility to the cryptocurrency space, really the Bitcoin space, right? Because this would be a Bitcoin spot ETF. So to the extent the broader market, right, the broader universe of people out there start to take another look at Bitcoin specifically, because all of these major, very well-known, trillion-dollar like asset management companies start to introduce products, right, that are spot Bitcoin ETF products, the more that starts to shape investor sentiment and the perception of the market, that's going to be really, really good, not just for Bitcoin, but for Stronghold Digital Mining, as well as really the entire publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem. Okay, let's stay positive. Let's be great. And we're going to get together again tomorrow. And I've got a lot of cool, interesting things to share with you. Okay, I'll talk to you then.